Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Something Blue, the podcast that seeks to explore interesting films through the world of physical media or otherwise, or people that just like watching really cool and interesting films. And I'm really lucky to have another guest this week, a man whose voice, probably more than anybody else's, sounds a bit like my own, if that makes sense. You might know him better as Let's Talk Criterion, but this is Steve Mack. How you doing, sir?
Hello, Chris. I'm absolutely fine. Yes, I sound exactly like you. You could even have an echo. There could even be an echo if we said the same word.
It's one of those things when you're kind of going through and you get recommended videos every now and again, Steve, and you just kind of go, oh, watch, this is a channel I've never heard of, and you hit play, and then you go, oh, he sounds a bit like me. That's unexpected.
You probably didn't expect someone from Northern Ireland to be on YouTube doing films like you. I know, it's great. It's great. Neither did I when I found your channel as well.
It's funny how small the world is sometimes, you know,
Isn't
even though...
It's so tiny, to be honest. Yeah. It really is.
It is interesting. So
you're here to... keeps it small.
It does. So you're here to keep me company and tell me about some of the things that you've been watching recently. Then we'll discuss some upcoming releases that excite you, and then we have a movie of the choice that you have brought up this week, which is Prick Up Your Ears by Stephen Frears. And I'll tell you, when I put that out, Steve, because you sent it to me, obviously we conversation back and forward, you said, right, let's go for this, and I was like, well, I haven't seen that. And when I was kind of thinking about the format of the show and thinking about what would be cool to do in that third section, what would be essentially the movie club part, I went, what I really want is people to recommend me movies that weren't on my radar, and this couldn't have fallen any better.
Fantastic. Well, it's really personal for me, this film, and I'll tell you why later. Very personal.
That would be great. Yeah. So we'll get to that in due course. But we'll start with what we've been watching recently, what we'd call the something old, as I would say. So what kind of things have been tickling your fancy, or what kind of rabbit holes or moods have you been in? Is there a theme around this time of year?
Yeah, there is indeed, yes. And because it's October, I have been burying myself in a lot of horror. Classic horror, of course, as well as modern horror. And I love the juxtaposition of both, to be honest. I mean, two films recently I've watched, for instance, The Exorcist, the horror big daddy, really.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that new version of The Exorcist that's been made available on 4K. Yes, I do agree with Elliot. There are problems, but it's still just a fantastic film. Yeah. It's just right up there still. Not as scary as when I first saw it, Chris, to be fair. But then I didn't watch it for that reason. I watched it for things that maybe I missed the first time round. Yeah. But Ellen Burstyn's amazing in it.
She's incredible.
Jason Miller is amazing in it. And although it's not a film I want to spend a lot of time talking about, it's right up there in the horror canon, really.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. Hadn't seen it in 25 years, I think, Steve. And it was one of those things, like, I barely remembered it. You know, obviously it has some of the most memorable scenes in all of movies in some ways, so you don't forget those. But a lot of the rest of it was like a fresh watch. Yeah,
there's parts even I watched it again recently and I thought, I don't remember that. I was watching the director's cut version with the spider walk in it, but I still think I'm sure that was that in the original film or wasn't it? But I couldn't honestly remember. And then I got the other disc out later, put it in, and sure enough, there it was. It was both versions of the movie. So clearly I must have missed it the first time round. But then you're not paying close enough attention. That's the thing. You're sort of wandering a little bit in the early stages of the film as things unfold. And then, of course, it ramps up big time whenever, a certain person arrives on the scene.
Indeed. So there's like two things that stand out to me on this rewatch, because I just sort of treated it like a first time watch in some ways because of all the other bits that I couldn't remember. So one is it's not particularly scary nowadays. I'm certainly not compared to when it was released in 77 or 75, sorry, wasn't it? It's not, but it's definitely a horror film. See a lot of this commentary that says, oh, it's not really a horror film.
Do me a favour, honest to goodness.
Like, as soon as you projectile bile.
People were vomiting in the audience, Chris, when they watched that. They were actually having, fits in the cinema. This is a horror film, and it's of the sort of level of psycho, really, that the effect it had in the audience in 1960 is exactly the same effect the Exorcist had. Yeah. They were queued round the block to see this film, Chris. We're of the wrong generation for this. Yeah. Really, the people who were young adults in the time that was released are the ones that would have been the ones who were petrified, not us. We have seen far too much in our time. And it's a problem I have, Chris, is people judge things by modern standards. And they shouldn't do that. They should always judge it by the standards at which existed at the time it was made, and what the filmmaker thought and what their views were when they made it. What was Friedkin thinking? He was thinking, let's shake everybody up because he's William Friedkin. And that's exactly what he did. He was a young man. He was a very ambitious young man. And that film really just catapulted his career. It really did.
Oh, absolutely. So, and the fact that everybody tried to iterate on the shock value of The Exorcist and tried to outdo it for so long. So when people try and redress it, it's because it was a tentpole at a time to kind of say, look, beat this.
Yeah. And they really haven't, to be fair. They're pale comparisons. Most of the representations are even, parts taken from it and redone. They're just they just don't hold that originality the original film holds.
And a bit like you were saying,
and that new aberration that's been recently released is a good example.
I haven't seen it. No.
Exorcist Believes, but best not talked about at all, I believe. Certainly according to Mark Kermode, anyway.
Yeah. So we didn't mean to talk about The Exorcist, but it is interesting. That is true.
It's such a talking point, Chris. Right.
I enjoyed it. But what's your first?
The film I wanted to talk about is from around the same period. It's 1968. It's the classic Rosemary's Baby from Roman Polanski.
U4K.
Now, I have many people... Yeah, I got the 4K. I actually didn't know that they were going to bring the UK version out on Paramount, and I ordered the US one. And would you believe, ironically enough, it hadn't arrived and the UK would release it. I was really angry because I was absolutely dying to see it. But there you go. I did eventually catch up with it. I can divorce Roman Polanski, what he is and what he's done, from the films he made. I think you have to, because there's no two ways about it. He's a brilliant filmmaker, Chris. From Knife in the Water, Propulsion, Cul-de-sac,
Chinatown,
right through to Chinatown. Oh my God! Well, can't wait for the 4K of that. I know it's coming. But the thing about Rosemary's Baby, it plays out a little bit like, at the beginning, almost like it's a 60s sitcom. Mm-hmm. This lovely young couple are getting married. Everything is happy. They're getting into a new apartment. And they just literally love each other. And, of course, it's just an idyllic sort of startup, really, where they're being shown through the courtyard area, shown the apartment. She loves it, doesn't she? Loves the apartment. And then they meet the neighbours. And that's where it sort of takes a strange turn and it kicks off. And for me, there's always something a little bit off kilter. Even when you first see the apartment, I felt that something wasn't quite right about the apartment itself. But it was the fact that you didn't really suspect anything when you first started watching the film, because of the way Mia Farrow was playing it, and John Cassavetes. And then you meet Ruth Gordon and her husband, and then you realise there's something not quite right about these people. There's something, I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but there's something not right about them. And then, of course, when she gives her the little necklace, you realise, oh, God, no. God, no. Obviously, I've seen the film before, so I'm talking more or less from the first time I saw the film. I didn't realise what was going on. You're not meant to, of course, but obviously on second or third watch, you're looking out for things you've never seen before. Yeah. But Ruth Gordon is quite eccentric as a neighbour. If I had her as a next door neighbour, I'd run a mile, Chris. Seriously. You know what I mean? She's over friendly and nosy. That's what got me. She's incredibly nosy, because obviously she wants to see what this couple are like and what is going on and what is happening. Of course, her eyes practically light up when she realizes she's going to have a baby.
Yeah.
So for me, it starts really well and it continues really well. And obviously the two central performances are what holds it up. And then there's the New Year's party where all these friends suddenly come from nowhere. And all of them are a bit weird as well. Yeah. They're nice, they're friendly, but there's something not quite right about them. It's that amazing thing. He plants Polanski that grows, and it's almost like a disease that starts to build, and you suddenly realise, oh my God, what is going on? And this drink that she's given, this strange drink, and then she starts throwing up and starts being sick, and I'm thinking, oh, are they trying to kill her? What are they trying to do? But obviously, and there's a realistic scene, of course, where the impregnation takes place, is basically where you realise that jaw drop moment, you realise, oh, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, Polanski is a master of storytelling. I think that's the thing that always stands out about his stories. He tells what are often very complex stories in a way that are sort of easy to follow. Like, a lot of the examples that you used there are kind of fall into that kind of idea of having lots of different things happening at the one time. A lot of stuff swimming in your head, but somehow at certain points things crystallise to a point where you go, exactly as you say, you kind of get that feeling from it.
He gives you the clues, but you miss them.
That's right.
Especially on the first viewing. On repeated viewings, you're looking for the clues, and they're all there, but you're not paying attention. Like a true sort of film of that type, he wants you not to pay attention. He wants you to miss the key points. Yeah. The Scrabble, for instance. And the way it's always foreshadowed, they're playing Scrabble, and then suddenly she ends up using the Scrabble. It's quite clever. He's introduced it as a device, but you didn't notice.
Yeah.
Because it was an instant game they were playing, and then suddenly she's using it to work out exactly what's going on. So for me, I mean, she when she realizes there's a conspiracy, her performance goes to a different level entirely, Chris. Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know why she didn't get an Oscar. She was nominated for one, but she didn't get one. And I don't know why, because I believe that was her first film.
But you not think, Steve, this is the thing about genre cinema in general. It is not seen as being either Oscar-worthy or otherwise. Like you're just talking about the Exorcist there. The Exorcist is a film that is held together and is so great because of the level of performance in it. You couldn't have put it any better. It is outstanding acting performance after another one. And this is another film that falls directly in that, but they never get recognised.
Yeah, horror films never win Oscars. No, it's sad really, because those performances are right up there with any other Academy performance, I would say, of that year. Yeah. I'm not sure which one won for that particular year. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but it probably was something big,
Yeah.
With lots of ensemble performances, no doubt, which Rosemary's Baby didn't have, to be fair. It largely, the film was Mia Farrow on her own in the apartment. Because did you notice also that John Cassavetes rather sort of disappears? We all know where he's going, of course, and what he's up to. He's plotting against her with the coven, but he sort of disappears halfway through the film, and he's only just literally popping in and out, where she is suffering on her own most of the time. Yeah. So I think she carries the film, Mia Farrow, to a large extent, with a sort of slightly eccentric comic turn of Ruth Gordon and the others, but I mean, originally, apparently, it was going to be Robert Redford. Could you imagine Robert Redford as her husband? I think he may have been doing possibly the comedy film at the time, the Neil Simon, Barefoot in the Park. May have been 67, 68. He was engaged with that, I think.
Oh dear, there you go.
So I'm glad he was, really, because I couldn't imagine him in that role at all.
It's funny how it would have changed the whole mood of that film. Having Robert Redford and having such a big star, and so in a way just would have taken away from it. He would
have eclipsed Mia Farrow, Chris. He would have eclipsed her, and it was her first film, and she was quite new, really. Yeah. But the thing I like as well is, I mean, would you believe Charles Grodin is in it?
Right.
The actor Charles Grodin is in it. He plays the young doctor she goes to help for, who betrays her. And obviously, there aren't many names other than the main names that you recognise the actors. Mm-hmm. They're obviously probably very popular American actors at the time, but because we're from a different decade, we don't necessarily know who they are. They could have been in TV shows and all sorts, you know. But it was a great book he wrote as well, R11, and that screenplay from it as well.
Keep on meaning to read it.
So, yeah, very satisfying watch. Even though I'd seen it before, thoroughly enjoyed watching it again.
Yeah, they're good fun to go back and revisit. And it's something I've been doing this October as well, is going back and kind of going through a lot of films that I hadn't seen, like a lot of really big classic films that I hadn't seen. I've got a video that I'm sort of planning how I'm going to talk about so many classic films in one video kind of thing. Like, it's really difficult to kind of give everything 30 seconds. That's like Blood and Black Lace. Here's 30 seconds of Blood and Black Lace.
Oh, you try and talk about Pasolini's first 7 films and you know how hard it can get.
Yeah. It's a bit nuts. So that's good. So give us another one, Steve. Fell into your watching.
Okay, well, we move to schlock horror, body horror. It's got to be my main man. I love this director. He is one of my favourite directors, and you probably know because I've chosen 2 of his films, and it's David Cronenberg.
Oh, fantastic!
Born in Toronto, Canadian born. He is a master of body horror. I mean, just leave all the others in the shade as far as I'm concerned. He was the one that made it happen in camera, in a believable way, and quite honestly, it was repulsive to watch. You know, you're going from early films like Crimes of the Future right through Rabid and into the 80s. And of course, I think he just came into his own in the 80s with films like The Fly, which comes after the one I'm talking about. And then, of course, equally hard to watch sometimes is Dead Ringers. Mm-hmm. Not that there's an awful lot of body horror in it, but again, there's some stuff in there that's just not comfortable to watch. But the one I wanted to talk about was Videodrome. It's had a recent renaissance on 4K from 2 separate labels.
That's right,
Arrow did it first, and then Criterion. I have to say, I bought the Arrow one, and I've got the Criterion one as well.
Well, to be fair, the packaging of the Criterion one is some of the very finest packaging that they've ever done.
Oh, it's lovely, and they've kept the original packaging exactly as it was. There it is, just exactly as it was.
So great. It's the spine.
And that video too.
Yeah.
Look at this. I mean, it's a video. It's like a video.
It's brilliant.
And it's actually not VHS, it's Betamax. Just to tell everyone, that's Betamax, not VHS.
We had a Betamax player.
Yeah, I think it was an American one. I think it was a big American format rather than here in the UK. But yeah, I think a Betamax hit big in America in the early days. But yeah, I mean, apparently, James Woods saw Scanners. Wanted to be in Videodrome as Max Ryan. And of course, he saw Deborah Harry from Blondie performing the video Union City Blue. Right. And he wanted Deborah Harry in the because a lot of people wonder why Debbie Harry's in it. Yeah. She's not an actress. But the thing was, he wanted her because of her persona in Blondie.
Right, okay.
The punk rocky goddess, the urban singer. And he wanted her in that film because she represented herself. Yeah. And that's why he chose her.
Well, it fits into the theme. Fits into the theme of the entire film, doesn't it? Yeah.
Totally. You know, and you could imagine everybody thought that she was slightly, kinky anyway, Deborah Harry, because of some of the stuff that Blondie got up to. I'm not going into detail there. But because of that, she was able to be kinky in Videodrome because she is, the needle through the ear and the piece of cork. Yeah. Which is somewhat unsettling to watch. It's just a touch of, just ever so slightly on the edge. And Videodrome just is ever so slightly on the edge all the way through. Mm. Nothing terribly overly sexual, but it's got those sexual overtones in it, which carry it through. And that's what I liked about it. And he wrote the screenplay himself for the film as well, which is very interesting. He didn't take a separate writer and ask a separate writer to do it. He clearly wanted to do it himself. He knew what he wanted to put on the screen. And he's terribly well prepared, Cronenberg, as well. He doesn't overly rehearse his scenes, but he plans his in-camera stuff meticulously.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of in-camera stuff in Videodrome. I mean, there's the scene where her mouth comes out of the television.
That's right.
The scene where the gun comes out of the television. Well, it's not a gun, it's like a flesh version of a gun. There's the scene where the television wobbles and, what's the word? Undulates. There's a lovely word. It undulates. And then there's the scene where he puts the videotape in his belly. And you're watching it in 4K, Chris, and honestly, you cannot see there's no strings anywhere. It's there right in front of you. You know that when the cameraman was in the room, he was seeing exactly the same thing. It's just incredible, the visual. There's no CGI anywhere to be seen. Nothing. Yeah. No mats, nothing.
Cronenberg.
So that's what I admire most about it, really.
Yeah, Cronenberg's a director. I think we all, as we get older, kind of reveling as each year passes just a little bit more, because there, again, a couple of things really strike me about him. One, like, you're there, a lot of people come for the body horror but stay for the message, you know, and all of his films have a very overt message about them. He isn't just doing it for effect, he is doing it to showcase some kind of idea that he's trying to challenge you with.
Yes, the media, particularly in Videodrome. Indeed. He was looking at the media and how they can over-sensationalize and overdo things. And the good example is the Videodrome tapes, Brian Oblivion, and what he does, how he can't be seen in person. He has to be seen on a television set. Yeah. It echoes a lot of what we have nowadays, to be honest.
Well, it's that idea. It's that idea of, you think this is horrible, actually what's happening in the background, or what is potentially going to happen in the future, is way more horrific than this body horror that you think I'm showing. And I think I love how he uses horror and the thing to kind of really put that in your face and challenge you as a watcher.
Yeah, it sort of foreshadowed the future in a way, because he sort of introduced sort of propaganda using video and media early on. And now we can be somewhat conditioned by things. And in fact, to be honest, we have been. And COVID was a very good example of conditioning to a very, very high extreme. We were glued to our TV sets, watching the 6 o'clock bulletin, being told what we could do next. That was conditioning. That was conditioning. You know, there weren't many people not watching it. So Videodrome is one of my favourite Cronenberg films, to be fair. Brilliant. Really, it's just a superb piece of work. And the performances, largely by unknown actors as well, largely Canadian actors, fairly unknown. Peter Dvorsky, for instance, as Harlan, is in it. And he's been in more than one Cronenberg film as well. But most of the rest of them you really don't. Sonia Smits, maybe, but you don't know many of them, to be fair, outside of the film, really.
Interesting. Two very interesting choices to start us off there, Steve. You actually get 3 for the price of 2, right? Throwing in The Exorcist.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks.
No, you're fine. It was well worth discussing. It is one of those. So I'll do a couple now, and since you've laid me off in a horror theme, I'm going to change a couple of the ones that I was going to talk about. Let's go for this. Actually, one of my favourite first-time watches this year, one of the best 4K discs and releases that I've seen this year, is Brotherhood of the Wolf by Studio Canal. I'd never seen this before. I bought
it. I haven't watched it yet.
Have you seen it before, Steve?
No, I haven't. And it's still literally got the plastic on it. I haven't unwrapped it even.
First time watch for me as well, have to say. So kind of didn't know what I was going in for, other than I kind of thought it was going to be a werewolf movie because, you know, the title, etc. of that.
The title, yeah.
It's a long movie. It's a French movie. It does that thing that I think City of Lost Children came out this year by Studio Canal as well, which is also terrific as well, as you know, Caro as well. They create these worlds that are so believable. So kind of this world of stories set within classic revolutionary kind of French times, with the very, the difference in class, all of that kind of stuff's happening. So spent so much of the film building up that world and kind of setting and making you feel, right, I'm existing in this world. And then they threw the fantasy element and the fantasy horror element of this wolf that's basically attacking all of these people, this creature. And like would have happened in those days, the spoken word of people saying, oh, I have seen it, it looked like this. Oh, I've seen it, it was bigger than you could have imagined. All of those tales that kind of, you think are kind of made out of, you know, stories and kind of all that kind of stuff, but actually coalesce into, you know, a bit of a legend that people come and investigate. And I can't tell you how satisfying the whole thing was. Again, for a film that's made of its time, kind of going, right, CGI wasn't at the level that maybe it is now. If it was made now, they would have done it completely differently, but all the better for it, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think it's really immersive storytelling, and by God, this disc that they put together is incredible with the amount of extras. I mean, this is another one. You've got 3 Blu-rays and a UHD in the one thing.
That's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, I have to hand it to Studio Canal. They're doing some amazing work at the moment.
Brilliant.
They're just knocking it out of the park with the work they're doing, really are.
But
yeah, but I must watch it now, Chris. It sounds fantastic.
It really is good.
Yeah. Is it like an Interview with a Vampire? Is it that sort of a thing where you sort of very much set in a period setting, but it has a slightly contemporary feel to it?
I mean, it has a little bit of a contemporary feel insofar as, like, what's his name? Mark Dacascos, isn't that what his name is? He plays like a Uruguay Indian character in it in French times, so there is that blending of the fantasy and the reality kind of a little bit there that he's coming across, and he's a very notable fighter and, you know, hunter of things. So there is like, I know what you mean by the Interview with the Vampire, you know, in terms of like creating a very gothic and feel of it, and then putting a classic story into it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I definitely have to give it a watch now. I mean, I've invested in it, so I should really do it before. Yeah. Well, there's a few more days left in October.
That is true.
The trouble is, I promised myself to get through all the Child's Play films, and I've only watched one so far. I've got 6 more to go. I know I shouldn't really. I think I'm going to take too much punishment, to be honest, if I do that.
Maybe give it one more.
Watch another Child's Play film again after that. Yeah.
Well, you've got them all in 4K still to watch. That's the way it is. And the other one I'm going to talk about is a silent film. I mean, I would call this a horror film. It's more of a fantasy film. But this is FW Murnau's Faust, which was a first-time watch for me.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, Goethe. My God. What a film. Again, no CGI special effects here, but would you know it from FW Murnau? The man was just a box of tricks at the best of times, and he pulls them all out in Faust. Like, it's unbelievable.
He was a singular talent, no doubt about it. He was indeed, yeah.
So, for anybody who doesn't know, I'll give you the story of Faust, which is that this is the devil and the angel. It's Mephisto and it seems to be Gabriel of some sort are having the challenge. Basically, say, you know, Mephisto wants Earth for himself, and he says, "Look, you can't have Earth." But he says, "Well, if I can turn Faust, who's the most devout and kind of good person on the planet, to be evil, if I can tempt him?" And the angel says, "Look, if you can have the Earth." And that's the setup. So Mephisto, the devil, sets about trying to tempt Faust by giving him what he thinks his heart's desires, which in effect is his youth, because he's an old man. And how that all plays out, the whole thing is just scene after scene of like imagination, of special filmmaking effects. It's kind of jaw-dropping from start to finish, and thankfully it's quite short in terms of silent film watching or otherwise, so it doesn't expect
they usually are, aren't they? Yeah. Is it a Eureka release, Chris?
It is. That's the Masters of Cinema release. Very good.
Excellent. Well, just because it's silent doesn't mean it's not good. You know what I mean?
I think I said to a few friends.
So many people won't even watch a silent film.
I said to so many people, I watched The Exorcist, I watched Blood and Black Lace, I watched Crimes of the Future, I watched Deep Red. Faust might be the best movie I've seen out of the whole lot of them, like in terms of spectacle and everything. I was just like, which is what like fantasy horror is all about. Like horror for 1926 obviously isn't horror of now, but I think it would have been a horror film back in those days, a very shocking kind of scene of the devil, etc.
Very much. Yeah, but I don't think they were constrained by the same boundaries back then, maybe, as well, the filmmaking boundaries. I mean, they may have had larger budgets for the time, and also more people at their disposal, and more set and more resources. Because everything is so tightly controlled budget-wise in films nowadays. You've got 20 million to make this. That's what you got to do. Do it inside 20 million. Use your money how you feel you should use it. But there's always concessions being made with modern films. So you can see them on screen sometimes, where the directors, has conceded to mainly make it CGI because it was cheaper.
That's true.
And not very good CGI at that. Yeah.
So there's my first two that fall into the kind of, I suppose, horror-ish genre, since it's that time of year. What else have you got, Steve?
Excellent choices. I'm going to move away from horror for my next one.
Okay.
I have got the Lars von Trier box set.
Oh, wow.
I was the one guy who bought it.
Well, I know another one. I know another two, actually, that bought it. Yeah.
Oh, I bet you. Yes, I bet I know who they are as well. It's fantastic. I actually bought the 4K of this film because it's not on 4K in the set.
In the set.
I thought, start as you mean to go on, Steve. If you're going to get Lars von Trier, you're going to have to do it properly.
And you probably already
own it. So I already
have
the Criterion of this film as well. Yeah, got it. But I thought to myself, let's just see what the 4K looks like. It's not exceptional, to be honest with you, because it's not that sort of a film. It's not filmed. It's filmed fairly bleakly, to be fair. Not an awful lot of colour in it at all. But absolutely blew me away. Yet again, for me, it's one of his most accessible films. He made it and he broke his own rules. Did you know that? Dogma 95.
But you have to tell people what it is.
Sealed and delivered by... Right, well, Dogma 95
is
basically
the
a vow of chastity. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay, you're doing a build-up, sorry.
He broke Dogma 95 rules. I'm going to keep you guessing for just a second more. He broke his own rules when he made this film, despite having signed on the dotted line with Thomas Vinterberg for Dogma 95. Because he put music in it and he put visual effects in it. It's breaking the waves from 1996.
Brilliant.
He did it because he could do it. He's Lars von Trier. That's basically so he's reported to say, "Oh, I didn't want to do it like that. I did it like this." So
he's a real breaker to start off with. Yeah,
he was so he set the rules and then he went ahead and broke them.
That's the way to do it.
He did get back on though. He did get back into line later down the line though. I'm amazed. It's Emily Watson's debut performance, which I find astounding.
Yeah.
She was nominated, but she didn't get an Oscar. The film itself is just stunning on every level. It's stunning on the way it's put together, in its 7 chapters and its epilogue. It's stunning in the performances in it, and there aren't very many lead actors in the film. Mainly Emily Watson is Bess, and her husband played by Stellan Skarsgård. Another fantastic performance from Stellan Skarsgård. A man, let's face it, of Jan, not of many words at all, to be fair. He doesn't say an awful lot, but he doesn't need to because he acts with his body and his face. And the story is just a gentle little story of this simple girl in Scottish Kirk in an island. The Kirk is sort of an area, isn't it, in Scotland. Basically, a very pious community led by the priest who's guided by the elders of the church. They don't even let women talk in the church openly. And Bess just loves this man, marries the man. He has a terrible accident and she has to deal with the trauma of her own personal trauma of having her husband in that state. Plus, as well as that, Jan himself dealing with what's happened to him. And the whole film is just delightful from beginning to end. It doesn't overdo anything. It seems strangely to be quite melancholic as a film, but yet it seems to have this sort of ribbon of hope through it, mainly from Bess, to be fair. She always thinks he's going to get better. We all know he's not going to get better. Yeah. He knows he's not going to get better, so much so that she literally sends her out on the game, which again is horrific, where she's literally ostracized by everybody in the entire community. And you feel so sorry for this little woman who really is just absolutely innocent to the utmost extent. Yeah. There's not a bad bone in that woman's body. And her little friend, the nurse, played incidentally by Katrin Cartledge, who, of course, it was in Mike Leigh's Naked.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, she was the girl in the flat.
Very good.
Don't see her do an awful lot, to be fair. Yeah. But she was equally, nice as a supporting friend, and also, she had her little bits towards the end of the film in the scenes where she's looking after Jan and stuff. And it comes to the epitome of the whole thing, where basically she just loses the will to live, and how Jan reacts, because he seems to be back on his feet again, not really clearly explained why. I don't need to know really, but he got better, effectively got better enough to walk, albeit on crutches. And then how they deal with Bess. Yeah. The reverence, they don't want her to have an unnamed burial. They want her to have to be consigned to a place where she belongs. Hence the title, Breaking the Waves. And then you've got this wonderful, clearly it was foreshadowed far earlier on in the film by Von Trier, The Bells.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I just loved it. I loved seeing it again, and I appreciated it even more. Yeah. I think it's the third time I've watched it, but I appreciate it even more this time around. And I think there was more riches I got out of it this time around, Chris, than I did the first two viewings, to be honest.
I
think I was more focused.
I keep on meaning to rewatch it, because it's many, many years since I did. I started watching it a while ago on the Criterion channel and then kind of got out of the way. But I think everybody keeps on showing me how lovely this box set is, and it does seem to be like properly comprehensive, even though it's missing that one film, as you quite rightly point out. Interestingly, I did look up. I did look up the 1997 Oscars. Actress in a leading role, so that Emily Watson didn't win that year.
Oh, who won?
So Frances McDormand won for Fargo.
Who won it? Well, this is the thing, you say, that was a popular win, wasn't it? But I mean, deservedly so. She was brilliant in Fargo.
There's sometimes you can grumble and complain and go, that's fine. She was also up against Brenda Blethyn as well from Secrets and Eyes that year as well. So it was pretty heavy, heavy, amazing in that as well.
That was heavy going, but don't worry, Brenda got the can for Best Actress.
Indeed,
she won the can award.
Interesting, but, indeed.
I think that people look at Von Trier and think, I can't watch any of his films and understand them. And people will watch films like Antichrist and think, what on earth is this? And they'd be right to do so. Mm-hmm. But you watch Breaking the Waves and I guarantee you'll get a beautifully told story.
Fantastic.
Very simple to understand and appreciate. Wonderful performances. Yeah. So 5 out of 5 for me on that. 5 stars out of 5.
Yeah. Excellent. So one more choice from you. Steve, what's it going to be?
Okay. It's another Cronenberg film.
Oh, dear God.
It's The Dead Zone. It's made the same year as Videodrome, 1983.
What?
You couldn't get two more different films from the same director.
Wow.
There isn't any body horror as such in The Dead Zone. It's based on the Stephen King novel. So obviously it's written by someone. Fair enough. But it's basically, have you seen The Dead Zone? Do you know it?
I haven't seen it. It's one of the few Cronenbergs that I haven't. But I do know.
Okay.
I've got the book behind my head. But let's not spoil it anyway.
I don't want to give too much plot away. Basically, it's Christopher Walken. He makes the film work. He is amazing as Johnny in the film. And Johnny basically has an accident. And he can touch people and detect their future. And that's where the whole film revolves around his skill that he's developed while he was in a coma, presumably. It's slightly supernatural. It's slightly, you could almost say it's slightly, it's chilling, and it's sort of not, it's not evil, and he's not evil. It's sort of, I'd say maybe supernatural is too strong a term, but it's not, his ability is not natural, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And obviously some people react in a really, really bad way to it. Anthony Zerbe, who plays this industrialist, reacts in a terrible way to him revealing something about his son. Try not to give too much away here, Chris. But obviously other people suspect there's something funny about him, but don't really do much more than that. Okay. But you've got a fantastic supporting cast. You've Herbert Loam as a psychiatrist who looks after him and nurses him back to health. You have Brooke Adams as his girlfriend, who then gets remarried later in the film and links up again with Johnny. You have Anthony Zerbe as the industrialist. You have the wonderful Martin Sheen as Greg Stilson, the senator, who is a nasty piece of work, and his sidekick. And it's just a great... you've got Tom Skerritt as the sheriff, who he assists to find a murderer in the film. So it's all... it's like a thriller, really, with strange off-kilter parts thrown into it.
Okay.
The fact that he can do this skill he has, this trick he does. And then obviously on top of all of that, you've got this sort of foreshadowing going on as well in the film too, where you feel something's it's not going to work out. As he does each time he demonstrates the skill, he gets weaker and weaker.
Right. Okay.
So he's effectively not doing terribly well by the end of the film, and you sort of know, it's not going to end well. But it's a great book anyway. Anyone that's read the book may argue with me and say, well, the film's terrible compared to the book. That's fair enough. I've never read the book. I don't want to read the book. I have my picture of the film in my head, and that's how
you've got the story.
But yeah, it's great, another great Cronenberg film. Brilliantly told as well. Have a look at that. Yeah, The Dead Son. Another score by Howard Shore again.
Oh, very nice.
Score, of course, by his favourite composer, Howard Shore. Yeah, beautiful. And I think it's available as a Shout Factory release, so it's going to get a 4K soon.
Yeah, it was out in print.
I've got my pre-order in.
Very good.
Yeah,
very good.
I believe it was. Yeah.
Excellent. 4 great choices there, Stephen.
So I don't think I can't say too much more about The Dead Zone without giving away too many strong plot devices. Hopefully I haven't given too much away there.
I just have to go watch it. That's my job now, and then we can come back and talk about it again sometime. That might be worth doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll go for my last 2, and I couldn't have you on and not talk about a Criterion release. So I'm going to talk about Menace II Society, the Albert and the other A. Hughes brothers film. Anyway, the two of them together, and it's a film that benefits from watching a lot later after the effect. We've just been talking about a lot of horror films, and this is as horrific as they come for completely different reasons. There's a reality to it that's horrific, this kind of life that these young men lead in terms of the awful circumstances and the basically lack of respect for life that they have, or even the life expectation that they have because of the lives that they lead. It is shocking and horrible, and yet it's very truthful as well. It is a very effective film. Have you seen it, Steve, I assume?
I have, and it was the first time I watched it when I bought the Criterion, and it was a real eye-opener, because I have watched similar films Boys in the Hood, Juice, but it's far better. It's far more effective film in that sense, because you do not feel you're being manipulated by the filmmaker. You feel as if you're just being shown exactly what is going on in the neighbourhood, and it is absolutely horrific to watch. And you think to yourself, how can these people live in this situation with these low expectations. They have got aspirations, Chris, but they don't ever seem to be able to attain them. And their lives are so short-lived as well. It's just incredible. But the thing is, it's still going on now. That was the 90s. It's still happening now.
It's hard not to watch something like this and kind of realise that we kind of grew up in a very different, but in a lot of ways very similar style environment with there are definitely parallels to be made. It's very different. Like, nobody was walking around Belfast in quite the same way of walking up to a corner shop. Can't compare it.
You can't compare it. But
the cycle of balance, that balance begets balance, is definitely true, and that's one of the things that I really took away from the film. And
But they don't seem to learn either, Chris. That's the problem. They seem to keep making the same mistakes as well.
But isn't it the truth that it was the same as the Troubles here? That the only way to deal with this was just go out and take revenge constantly. They did that, we're going to do that. And this cycle that keeps on going round, and nobody's sitting down and going, this is actually good for nobody. This isn't creating a stable society. This isn't creating a place where kids can grow up and flourish and kind of do anything with their lives. And some of the points that it has to make in it are quite pointed, I think, in a lot of ways, and are very, very effective. But like the conversations between the scriptwriter and the Hughes brothers, and then the music score, and the whole thing is just absolutely...
Yes, the extras are superb.
It's really something else as far as the release goes. And I just kind of sat and edited up, and then I read the essay on the inside, and I just kind of immersed myself in that story and those characters and that world for a good couple of hours.
Yeah, you literally lose yourself in that world, don't you? And you come out the other side and think, they've achieved nothing. It was all for nothing. Can't give anything away because you must see the film. But it was just heartbreaking. The end of the film was heartbreaking.
So effective, though. I mean...
that you felt, oh God, hope. Oh no, there's hope here. There's actual hope for these young men. And then suddenly, boom.
Something else, a cousin or a brother or something is just... taken up. It's just
my
awful.
Goodness, I know. It's like almost something else is going on in the background, and it just all blows up at the end, and it comes from nowhere, comes out of left field.
Criterion being the people that kind of showcase other people's lives. I mean, that's what I always think about filmmaking, especially from a collection like Criterion. You get a window into how somebody else lives or grew up in a different time, a place, a country, a set of circumstances, whatever it is, and you do get a window into... You always see an extreme version of it, for sure, but that doesn't mean it's not truthful.
No, and they take these films to say that these are really popular films. I mean, the excitement around this release was very, very high. But they took this film and they brought it out and gave it a new lease of life. And perhaps it could have been forgotten about and sort of stuck on the DVD shelf and just forgotten about. And now it's got this wonderful new transfer, all of those extras. It deserves to be where it is in the Criterion collection, certainly.
Just fabulous.
That was a good choice, Chris. Very
really,
good choice.
Really fabulous, and something that I felt very kind of like scarred by, but also, a fulfilling experience, film watching experience, and kind of putting it all together, and kind of reaffirmed why you go out of your way sometimes to seek out films that are sometimes difficult to watch and sometimes difficult to process.
Yeah, I think that's why I like Criterion so much. You could be watching something from the 1920s one day and something like Menace II Society the next, and people will turn around and say, oh, Criterion's full of old fuddy-duddy films. Actually, far from it. And the last few years, they've proved that by some of the releases they've brought out. They've been very contemporary in their nature. So, yeah. But you know how I feel
absolutely.
About Criterion. I mean, you're preaching. I'm preaching the gospel here, as I say it, really. Yeah.
So interesting in that regard.
Yeah.
And the last one I'm going to talk about very briefly, and that is I've been on a bit of a Scorsese kick at the moment. I know Killers of the Flower Moons is out at the cinemas at the moment, and all well and good as it is. I watched Silence.
Yes.
I haven't seen Silence.
Silence. Yes, I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it. I don't
think
know why.
Recently, it kind of came out just before the pandemic, and maybe there hasn't been like a big release of it, to the same extent that there has other things. But Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, Liam Neeson, this kind of idea that they're going to go look for a priest who has been lost in Japan, who's trying to spread the Christian word, so to speak. It's a long film.
Yeah.
It's, again, very powerful.
Yes, it is.
Very, very powerful. Again, there's bigger messages about life and about faith than just what is presented on the screen. And that idea of like how far can your faith carry you, all of that kind of stuff is, it's chilling in a lot of ways. But like like I say, I've been on a real Scorsese kick at the moment of really enjoying his films, but this is right up there with, in terms of like really effective watches, and what a great storyteller he is, and it's just utterly wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so that's our what we've been watching recently, Steve. I'll be having some technical difficulties today, but isn't such life on the internet recording?
Oh well, I work in IT, so it comes with the territory for me.
Oh my god! As a man who heavily scripts, you're just sitting there going, "There's a reason, Chris."
There is a reason. Yeah, everything I do is so tightly controlled. I'm really scared when I do even just the live updates on the UK releases. I'm thinking, oh god, yeah. I record those now as well. They're not live either.
Yeah. Oh dear, it's so funny. So we're going to move on to things that are coming up, but things that are in news or things that are happening in the physical world, and there are a couple of very interesting things happening in the past week. I think Criterion's January slate is a showstopper. Wow.
Yeah, they are literally cementing their position here as one of the top labels now. I mean, that January slate is just amazing. All right, we've got the 4K upgrades again. That's fine. I think we're going to have to live with that. If you're a collector of Criterion, you verbally have got the Blu-rays of some of those.
Yes, indeed.
But, I mean, quite frankly, they are knocking it out of the park. They really are.
We still get 4 big releases. We get 3 releases, new releases, and a box set. Outside of Blood Simple and the Apu trilogy, which in their own right, I think are just... they're ones that I own both Blu-ray releases for them. Apu trilogy in 4K is going to be very hard not to buy. Those films are special to a lot of us, and
I'm lucky in that regard. I don't have the Apu trilogy,
so do you not?
I held off. I had a funny feeling it was coming, and I was actually in the CEX shop. Now, if you're not in the UK, you don't know what that is, but it's a second-hand shop, and they had it for £33, and I had it in my hand 2 months ago and put it down, and I thought, let's see, it might be coming out in 4K, because I just got a bit of a whisker of a rumour that they were showing 4K screenings of Sanchez Ray films, and of course the Apu trilogy was in that screening. And I'm thinking, hold off, Steve, that 4K is on the way, and I was right. I'm getting good at predicting it now, Chris. I'm getting good at predicting it.
Brilliant films, brilliant. As is Blood Simple. Like, I'm a big Coen Brothers fan as well. Like, I'm brilliant. But
so
of
I'm
the reasons that we
delighted to be able
did
to buy that.
Yeah. Got Lone Star from John Sayles, which my good friend Salter Ronan will be very happy about, because he's the champion of the John Sayles fan club there for All Good and Bad. Well, so Lone Star coming.
Really looking forward to seeing that film. Can't wait. Yeah.
Definitely one of those, and in 4K no less, which is great.
Yeah, that's just even better. Fantastic.
Yeah, because Mate One was like a stunning release, like a really one of the favourites from the past couple of years.
Yeah, I have that. It's a fantastic release. Yeah, really, it's good to have more of him in the collection.
For sure. And then we have Mudbound by Dee Reese, and I'm an enormous fan of Dee Reese's other release, Pariah.
Whoa, yeah. It was a Netflix film, was it, Mudbound, I believe?
Mudbound was, yes, because it was.
I didn't see it. I didn't watch it. I'm not a big fan of the stream. I find that the compression, it bothers me too much. It's very... I prefer to wait till the physical release in most cases.
I'm very excited for that. Very excited because, like you say, that Pariah film is one of my absolute favourites in the entire collection.
She is a fantastic filmmaker. I'm really excited about Mudbound. Yeah.
And then some little film, Train Spotting.
Well, what can I say? I mean, I wasn't expecting it. I have to say,
Yeah.
I was really surprised because I thought, well, somebody else is going to bring a 4K of Trainspotting. I never would in a million years thought it would be Criterion. But there you go. I am delighted to see it coming. It is a rite of passage film in the UK.
That is true.
I don't know how the Americans feel about Trainspotting. Perhaps they put the subtitles on to get around the Scottish bits. But as you and me, we probably understand fluent Scottish anyway.
That's true.
It never bothered me, never caused any problems. But it is clearly the film that catapulted Danny Boyle into the stratosphere. He did Shallow Grave, and Ewan McGregor was in it, but it wasn't as big as Trainspotting.
Yeah.
That was just meteoric Trainspotting. And the way he adapted the book from Irvin Welsh and visualised what was clearly unfilmable, really, from a book perspective, because the book was written from all the perspectives of the individual characters. He put it all into Renton, but let Renton experience the individual characters and their perspectives, and we experienced it through Renton. And it was just inspired. I mean, I cannot talk enough about Trainspotting. I'm a massive fan of the film, from the performances to the music, which is just so beautifully placed all the way through. But Danny Boyle is a master where scoring is concerned, soundtrack scoring is concerned, and the fact he used the songs he did and the way he did was, again, just inspirational. I mean, every young filmmaker should look at Trainspotting for inspiration. They probably do, to be fair. I mean, you can see what a fan I am.
It's a funny film for me because I think when I came out, I was definitely of that age, and I genuinely didn't like films that glorified drug taking, which, I mean, it sort of does, right, in a lot of ways, but I know it kind of does it with it.
I don't think it does, because you remember what happens to the girl in...
This is the thing. So, like, as a young man, you watch it, you kind of go glorified drug taking. But actually, as a more mature man and having seen Trainspotting in recent memory,
there's a serious message there that's given out, and the fact of what happens, of course, after one particular nasty session. The consequences are fatal.
Well, indeed. And the glorifying, again, what was perceived glorifying of Robert Carlyle's character Begbie as well, but again, you can watch many years later and kind of go, no, I see that completely differently now. And I think it is a very different film now than it was to me then. Its irreverence is the thing that I love about it now. You know, the fact that it didn't conform, that it challenged filmmaking and what you could do on screen and what way you could perceive defecating.
I think it reinvented filmmaking. It reinvented filmmaking in every aspect.
It's a very important,
you know what I mean, from its very first opening sequence to its last few seconds. Yeah, it's. I'm not saying it's a perfect film. It's not, but it's not far off perfect, Chris. As a modern contemporary film goes, it really isn't.
And you know, it has like a terrific cast as well. But you know, that's Johnny Lee Miller as well. More Johnny Lee Miller. I love him.
So many careers, you know.
Brilliant.
I wasn't as keen on the sequel, to be fair. I think too long had passed, and he was almost doing it as I have to do this, and it just wasn't as effective. Didn't enjoy it as much.
It doesn't.
It's weak. It's weak compared to its predecessor, to be fair.
It just doesn't have the time and place that the first one was released in. Because, like you say, it was on the cusp of a musical revolution at the time as well. Like the soundtrack was very influential in terms of its effect, right, on British pop music for the next kind of 5-10 years as well. You know, so the whole thing was very important.
Well, I bought the soundtrack of the album, certainly, and I've also got the green one as well, which is all of the extra tracks and all of the other songs that were influenced from Trainspotting, and that's great as well. Yeah, I listen to it listen to it all the time. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's going to be a massive seller for Criterion.
Oh, I hope so.
They're bringing it out in January, so people will probably wait for the flash sale in America, but I'm sure a lot of people will buy it day one.
Yeah. I'll be in the list for it. See, there's been a bit of talk that maybe not, because it's with Warner, I think, it's with somebody here that doesn't usually license it out, but.
No,
I wonder. I wonder.
They haven't announced the January UK releases yet. It could. I don't know what's going to be out there. You say
we're going to get Lone Star and we're going to get Mudbound. I'm almost certain those are the two that we're going to get out of that, and we might get a 4K release of Apu.
Yeah. Yeah, don't say, have we got Blood Simple? I don't know if we've got.
No, we haven't. We haven't got Blood Simple because I had to import it.
I would predict we're going to get Blood Simple in 4K then in January, possibly. I don't know. They tend to follow. That sort of line. Well, we'll see what prediction comes out there then.
Yeah, but see, and the last one that obviously is the Chantal Akerman masterpieces that includes Jean Dielman, as well, which is a strange set given its price. I think I look at its price point and go, this isn't going to be one of the deluxe sets that Criterion do, but this seems to combine what would have been the Eclipse releases with some of the other.
They've been out there before, haven't they? The Eclipse set. I mean, I watched John Dielman for the first time 2 years ago, and I'd heard all the rumours about it. It's long, it's boring. I was transfixed for 3.5 hours. Could not stop watching that woman doing nothing most of the time because it was just absolutely compelling. Yeah. So it certainly got me to appreciate Chantal Akerman for that film alone. And obviously, I'll be really looking forward to seeing her other work, which I haven't seen because I don't have that Eclipse set because it's a DVD. I don't tend to buy DVDs.
Well, it's more I like the context and I like to see it wrapped up. And when I watch a film, I like digging into it and saying, right, why was this an interesting film? I want to hear somebody else's perspective. But mainly because I can challenge I have a sounding board for what I thought of somebody. Like, it was interesting. I was watching. I've been watching a lot of Hitchcock recently because, again, is the time. And I watched Vertigo and Friedkin's commentary on. Friedkin does the commentary on Vertigo, right? Yes. And actually, his reading of Vertigo, because it's a film I've seen 7, 8 times, whatever it is, many times I've seen Vertigo, is like, that's so strange that he would think that of it, because I actually see it slightly differently, and I think that as a film viewer, that's some of the most fun you can have, is when you kind of hear somebody else's thoughts and go, I don't completely agree with that, but that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's...
Yes, because I've heard people say that John Dielman especially is one of the most boring films I've ever watched. But for me, it was one of the most exciting I've ever watched.
I can see both sides of the argument quite well, because there is nothing happens. Like, she cuts potatoes, she cuts the beef venison,
It's the fact that you're actually seeing nothing happen is fascinating. I found that completely fascinating. And then when something did happen, it completely out of left field, wasn't expecting it at all. Because the film would almost lull you into a sense of the banal and the ordinary. And then when you get the extraordinary occur, you're thinking, what the...
But there are clues and signs. When you see the banal and the ordinary, you see the day-to-day repeated, it's this very small differences of the things that you notice, and that's where the power of that comes in and with smartness comes.
It is. So, very, very subtly done. Very subtly done.
So, very excited for Criterion for the rest of the year. If that's kind of 2 upgrades, 4 new releases, 2 of them in 4K, with that's phenomenally exciting for the rest of the year.
And I noticed no Janus Contemporaries for January announced, so either they're going to be still announced, or they're going to be another 3 films, or are they leaving those till February? So there could be even more coming down the line.
That's interesting. And then Indicator announced their January slate. I don't know how much you follow Indicator, Steve.
I don't follow it too heavily because, unfortunately, a lot of those films are not my cup of tea. Yeah. And I did buy a lot of I did buy a lot of Indicator in the last few years, but I've dropped right off because the films they're releasing are not really my thing, unfortunately.
So a couple of interesting things from their January slate is that they have went from 4 to 3 releases for this month. And I often think that January is the time when a lot of companies reset and say, set out the stall for the year, say, this is what's going to happen. Which I'm sort of glad to see, because I'd rather they kept the high quality bar up with less releases rather than kind of force out 4, and have one kind of been a filler disc, and you kind of watching it going, that wasn't at the level of the other ones or otherwise. And they've also done away with their reward system as well, which I think is really interesting.
Oh, that's unfortunate. The bundle thing that's gone as well.
The bundle's there, but they used to give you points as well. So that basically, I think it was 4 points for every £1 that you spent, something like that. Something of that else. They're doing away with that,
very good.
And they're letting you spend. They're letting you spend up the rest of it. So I've £18 worth of points left to spend. So I'll dump that off this month's purchase.
Very nice. So
I'll be done with that.
There is a January releases then on their roster you're attracted to, obviously.
There is indeed. Well, I tend to buy indicator, sight unseen, kind of every month, because they have this mix of classic films that used to be on at 11 o'clock at night on BBC One, BBC Two. As I would say, but those, if you remember those kind of ones, and they also then have the mix of classic Hollywood that tends to come out in like Kino and stuff like that. So this month they have The Man Who Had Power Over Women, which is Rod Taylor and Carol White. I didn't know that one. Impossible Object, which is a Frankenheimer movie with Alan Bates, and then they have
that might interest me.
Yeah, and then Jinnah, which is Christopher Lee. About Pakistan's founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So, like, 3 interesting releases, and as usual, great extras and all of that kind of stuff, you know.
I know a bit about Jinnah. Apparently, it was his favourite film, Christopher Lee's favourite film.
So I'd heard that. I did hear that.
Of his.
Yeah.
So that might actually make me want to get that. I want to have a look at that, because he's playing a real person, isn't he?
Yes, he is a historical figure, yeah. So he's doing a biopic.
So I think I'd like to see him do that. I'd like to have a look at that. Yeah, so I might order that one.
Excited by that. So just to be clear, the bundle is still there. So order the 3 things, get a 10% discount, which is great. But going down the number of releases, which I think it's also, I'll not complain about that, because I have a lot of unwatched discs, just like everybody else.
Yes. And after Christmas, it's expensive. You want to try and sort of start saving money going into the new year.
So after that, we have 2 weeks of releases. The October the 30th. Now you've highlighted a few releases here, mainly 4Ks. Steve, are your bag here? So,
well, Chris, it's the golden age for 4Ks. I mean, what is coming up to Christmas is just phenomenal.
It is.
And not to mention the silly films like Santa Claus the Movie. Do you know what I mean? Special
4K.
steel books of Elf and God. Yeah, exactly. These are the, not the Christmas dregs, I'm not going to call it that, but you've got Scrooge, haven't you, coming out?
Yeah, that's coming
with
at
wonderful
4K.
Bill Murray.
Seen that, I don't know how many times. Yeah, indeed.
They tried to put antlers on a mouse, I think, in that film, I believe.
Just try and staple it. Try and staple the antlers. That's
only Bill Murray. I can't wait to see it, because I just love Carol. Is it Carol? I've forgotten the actress's name. She's so off piste. She's just absolutely nuts in the film.
Love Scrooge.
And Scrooge is such fun to watch. I already have Elf. I bought that last year. But then you buy these silly films coming up to Christmas, don't you? But I mean, I've heard wind that Shout's bringing a JFK.
Oh,
both
yes, that's
cuts
right.
of JFK.
Big set of that.
I have my pre-order in. I cannot wait.
JFK.
Warner Brothers didn't bring it out, but at least it's coming out. That's all that matters to me, because I've wanted a 4K of JFK since I was born.
Brilliant. But you've highlighted Megan and Leon, the professional, obviously the Leno film.
Yes. Well, I bought the Blu-ray. This is so irritating. They're doing this all the time. They're bringing out Blu-rays of films, and then 3 or 4 months later, they're saying, 4K. Here's a 4K. We don't care if you bought the Blu-ray, buy the 4K again. And that's exactly what I'll probably end up doing, because that's exactly what it did do. So I've seen Megan, or M3GAN, as it's known to friends.
Did you? You obviously enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. You know what? For what it was, it's one of those films. It's not a new idea necessarily, a doll that goes mad and psychotic. Let's face it, it's a not new idea, but it's a modern version of that idea, done very, very well indeed. With the technology and the visual effects are absolutely A1.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit of Ex Machina in parts, to be fair.
Oh, right, okay.
Because there's a robot that goes completely nuts in that as well, kills people. But it's so well done, and again, it starts off. You don't suspect much at the beginning of the film. A nice little doll, it's bought, and obviously you program it, and you what's the word, pair with the doll, and then the first indication that the doll is psychotic is the boy in the outbound, retreat. That it's just horrific what the doll does to the boy, and you think, here we go, it's going to be carnage, and indeed it is.
So that's fun with it.
Everything the doll encounters from that point forward either is maimed or seriously injured or dies. But that's what those films are built to do, and they do it incredibly well, Chris. Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyed the ride. And all I'll be bad at for really is the clarity in the 4K. Mind you, the Blu-ray is pretty impressive as it is.
Impressive. And Leon, obviously a film that is just filled full of tension, but also like some of the greatest acting performances of people of all ages. Leon is just superlatives.
It's great. I mean, the performances are brilliant. And Natalie Portman, of course, is wonderful in the film.
Yeah.
And also, you know, Jean Reno sort of hit the big time. I think De Palma cast him after
That's right.
Leon, on the strength of Leon in Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible.
He had done mainly foreign films up to that point, and suddenly he was launched into Hollywood as a very, very bankable actor after that. And Gary Oldman, I mean, well, what can I say? I mean,
well, we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about him again, but I think it's nice to compare this performance to prick up your ears, isn't it?
He's the epitome of a versatile actor, Chris. I mean, he is so scary in that film. I was frightened of him watching him on screen, and I saw it in the cinema, and I was petrified of that guy. And I'm thinking, what's he going to do? This is unpredictability. You absolutely have no clue what he's going to do. And when he lets rip, but he doesn't let rip straight away. It's all bubbling under, and suddenly, boom, and then you think, oh my God, it's utter insanity. And he doesn't seem to care who's in the way or what's going on. And that's what I loved about the film. It was that sheer unpredictability of it, and how Jean Reno's trying to keep control of the girl, protect the girl against what seems to be immovable forces. Mm-hmm. But somehow or other he manages to get her through. You think she's going to die. You really do. Fantastic film. Yeah, scored again by Eric Serra. Yeah.
Oh.
Luc Besson uses Eric Serra all the time for scores. Yeah.
So also out that week is Pandora's Box is out for Masters of Cinema, which I'll talk about in a second. Ginger Snaps Trilogy from Second Sight, Chopper by Second Sight, and then the next release in the Directors Company series from Third Window, which is Door 1 and 2. I've just watched Guard from Underground. Yeah, okay. And there's a few other things. Now, the interesting thing about Chopper and Pandora's Box is I'm not buying the big boxes. I'm swearing off big boxes, hard boxes for the rest of my life is what I'm saying. More for a space reason than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up the standard editions of anything, so I'll have to wait a bit for Pandora's Box to come out. And like that artwork is gorgeous. It's the one that I'm looking at going, but I could just I could make an exception, but I'm not going to because for the love of God, I can't. Maybe
on your Christmas list. Put it on your Christmas list, Chris.
It's space. I kind of wanna sell all of my Second Sight hard boxes with a few exceptions and just get the single cases so that I can fit more bloody things on a shelf is where I'm at with it. But
I know they are massive. They are gigantic. Some of them.
Very big ideas, but I'm very poor execution, so I'll probably fail miserably because Pandora's Box is something that I'm very excited for. November the 7th. There's one big release that the Hitchcock's Classics Volume 3.
Oh, wonderful. I was waiting for it to come because I'm saying, where are all the rest? And here they are. So I think that's it complete. I think that'll be the last one now.
I think it'll be the last one.
What a compilation. What a compilation. Great choice. Of course, they've all been out there before in sets, but the difference is they're all 4K. And I've been waiting personally for Torn Curtain. It's just one of my little favourites of his. Very simple little film, Julie Andrews and Paul Newman, but I just love it. Love it to death. And it doesn't really do much as a film, to be fair. There's no real fear or dread in the film whatsoever. But it's just this business about, the Iron Curtain and, traveling through East Berlin and getting to Sweden at the end of the film. And I just love it. It's just a lovely little Hitchcock film, actually.
Yeah.
So I always admired it for that reason. Yeah.
It's the film that ended Bernard Herrmann and Hitchcock's friendship, as it turns out. He fired him from it, so that's really interesting. I can't wait for that set because the other two sets I just think are just fantastic, and not in terms of just obviously the quality of the films, but I think Universal have went to town on actually doing definitive sort of releases of a lot of those films.
It's great that they all come out in separate sets, and they haven't just launched every single Hitchcock film straight at us, because it would have cost a fortune in 4K, but we're getting it in little chunks, which is lovely. Yeah. And I'm very pleased that we're getting The Man Who Knew Too Much in that set as well, the remaked version of Man Who Knew Too Much. And I really like Rope as well. Can I just mention Rope? Based on the 1929 play by Patrick Hamilton.
Quite possibly my favourite Hitchcock.
Yeah. Well, yes, Hitchcock sort of changed that from a British play to an American film, because he changed the woman in it. The woman in it was actually a man in the play.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't know that.
The maid was a man, yeah. Because I've actually been involved with the stage play of Rope.
Very good.
So right, I know a lot about the original play. So it's great casting. It was just James Stewart was inspired to put him in that role, because he was perfect for that part.
The fake one shot as it is.
Yeah, it's not, is it? It's
not. So I know where the joints are, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's great, but it comes across like it's one take, and
it does.
It was an experiment by Hitchcock, and I think largely he pulled it off.
It is
because he treated it like a play. That's what he did. He was reverent to the play and said, "I'm going to make it look as if it's just a play, so there's no interruptions." And that's exactly what he did. Yeah.
Other main one that I should highlight, I mean, there's One False Move is coming out from Criterion, which has already been out in the US, but we're getting the 4K and Blu-ray version here for One False Move. I have an imprint, so I'm sitting on the fence as far as that one goes.
You're okay with that? Yeah, well, that's Carl Franklin. Yeah, I've got that 4K because, as usual, I didn't wait. I didn't know it was coming to the UK, so I've got the US release of One False Move. Fantastic film. Thoroughly recommended. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And the other one I'd really like to highlight is a kind of very late edition that was announced by the BFI, which is the KLF film, 23 Seconds to Eternity.
Yeah, I was really surprised about that, because I bought the album KLF and listened an awful lot to the plot to Justified and Ancient.
Yeah,
it was on the radio. It was never off the radio when it was released. And I love the album. I love KLF. Period. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that release and soaking up the extras as well. Yeah.
I love that. When that album was out, I was a big KLF fan as well, and it kind of, again, their irreverence and everything they kind of stood for as being anti-establishment and all that kind of stuff. It's so interesting.
There was a slight mystery about them, Chris, as well, when they brought a release out, it was like, ooh, KLF, what are they doing? And it wasn't sort of much advertising, and, it was a sort of mystique around it.
Well, they did that thing, didn't they, where they just released under various names, so they would be like, as was the Justified Ancients and Moo Moo, and you found out after the fact that it was the same guys, and it was like, you didn't know that at the time. Yeah. So fascinating stuff.
Great. I'm really looking forward to that. But you see, BF have done it a couple of times now. Sant'Etienne was a music film as well. And of course, they've done it more recently with The Weekender, which I bought, and Weekender is great. Another, music video that's sort of gone down in the annals of time. Yeah.
And they did the Pet Shop Boys one as well.
Yes.
Happened to us. Yes. Yeah, so like really great to see them continue to champion that, even with the ska one that came out, Dance Craze. Came out as well.
Dance Craze is great. Yeah, it was like it was just literally turning back time. It sounds amazing as well. There's an Atmos mix on that. Sounds amazing. Sounds like you're there. Sounds like you're in the room. Amazing.
And I think it's worth saying we're both big fans of BFI's output over the past couple of years and the choices that they make.
Yeah. We may as well be shareholders, you and I, Chris.
Indeed.
shareholders.
Continue to champion their cause and the choices that they make in terms of releasing them. I continue to be a big fan of as it goes. Yeah. So that's what's coming out over the next couple of weeks, which leaves us only one thing to do. Our movie club, if you want to say, or otherwise. Your choice, and I'll do my usual intro, is a 1987 film directed by Stephen Frears that runs for 105 minutes, that has a 7.1 on IMDb. It has a 79% audience approval score on Rotten Tomatoes, with a 95% tomato meter, and a 3.6 in Letterboxd, which feels, I don't know, maybe about. What is the film, Steve, and why did you pick it?
Well, he's my hero, Joe Orton.
Oh, right, okay.
Speaking as a gay man here, he is my hero. Because he was the film I sort of watched. That was one of the films I watched when I was about to come out. And it was just the way he handled himself, that just ability he had to be charming at the same time as just doing exactly what he wanted. He didn't care about anybody. And I was slightly inspired by that. And I bet it went a bit wild, to be honest, when I came out. Let's just say it was quite an attack on the world. But I calmed down not long afterwards. But Prick Up Your Ears for me was almost a coming-of-age film for me. I was a young man at the time, and I watched it, and I thought, wow, I never heard of this guy before. Went off and bought the Joan Lahr biography. Bought the Orton diaries, read them from cover to cover, and literally became a Joe Orton expert overnight. And he's still one of my heroes as well to this day. He had a very short life, died just around 30 years of age, and his life didn't really start till he reached Strata in his 20s, and when he met Halliwell. Obviously, the film starts at the end where he is killed by Halliwell, and then it goes back to his formative years when he's a young man, and his mother is Julie Walters. Who wouldn't want a mother as Julie Walters? And his sister is also a great actress as well, Frances Barber.
Yeah.
Leonie Orton's sister, who really was quite bemused by what he was up to at the time. And it's written by Alan Bennett, and that's why it has that nice comic streak running all the way through it. It could have been taken and written by somebody else, and I don't think it would have been as successful a film, because it instantly draws you in and makes you comfortable watching it. The performances from Gary Oldman as John Orton, as he was known in Leicester before he left, and then Joe Orton, and then, of course, Alfred Molina as Kenneth Halliwell are absolutely two of the best British performances I've ever seen. And equally so, Peggy Ramsey by the wonderful Vanessa Redgrave.
Yes. Oh. There's so much that because I hadn't seen it before at all, like I was saying.
Yeah, I want to know what you think about it, because I sort of know what I think. I'd love to hear what you thought as a first-time viewer of that film.
So I didn't know Joe/John Orton at all. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what the film was about in any ways. And in fact, the Stephen Frears films that I'd seen were basically My Beautiful Laundrette and High Fidelity, which ironically enough, High Fidelity for me is my coming-of-age film of that kind of transformation thing, which is interesting that they're both Stephen Frears films. I think that's
it's interesting. Yeah. Well, I think My Beautiful Laundrette would have been a coming-of-age film for many other gay men too, as well, prior to that one. Yeah. So,
a couple of things stood out to me. Obviously, a very young Gary Oldman, and how he plays how expertly he plays a youthful character, given that he's kind of become famous for playing kind of the opposite in many ways, and a lot of time very serious, dour, kind of maybe a bit psychotic, and it's totally about face, the other way.
Yes.
And the things that really strike me about it is obviously the relationship between Halliwell and Orton themselves, about how they kind of worked with each other, and actually how Orton's success actually led to the end, and how Halliwell couldn't accept that. And it's so interesting because I recently watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch, right?
Oh, yes.
And a lot of the themes are so similar about, Hedwig in that film is kind of holding on to the anger of how she's been wronged by a former lover, and how they took credit for their time together and how they became a big star and they were not. And kind of, you look at that and alongside this, and you see the ends of the two movies as being the total opposite of each other.
Yes,
and and how those things, and how Halliwell as a man couldn't let go. He could never get past that. At a certain point, it was always going to end that way for him, because he couldn't do it. And yet, Orton as a man did his best to include him at all times. Like, there's even the scene when they're filming the stage play and he's sitting at the back shouting obscenities and they're going, "Who are you?"
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Go ahead, he has his place.
He included him, even so much setting up all his friends to come to his collage exhibition. Nobody would have been there had he not asked them to come. Everyone in that room, other than Halliwell, Orton had made come there.
Yeah,
that was the problem, and he was a nobody. Halliwell, that was the problem, and he thought he was intelligent. He was intelligent, Halliwell. Don't get me wrong, but he had no talent. That was the problem.
Yeah,
he had no writing talent. Orton was the one with the talent, and he found that talent in prison. Yeah. And when he came out, that line had been crossed. He didn't need Halliwell in his life anymore, but he chose to keep him there. And because Halliwell was such a neurotic man, it could only end one way. That was the problem. So if they had split up, he would be still alive, I think.
Yeah.
That's the problem as well.
Oh, for sure. But they do that whole investigation of the things that they got up together, the formative stages of the relationships, and how they kind of used other people to supplement their relationship. Let's put it that way, in some ways, and how how that was a positive in some ways, but ultimately, destroyed it in some ways because it created and festered an awful lot of, I'd say, insecurity in Halliwell, because the fact that he kept on changing his hair, etc. The changing of the wigs and the changing of all of that, and also about how this is a document of how I think Britain has changed so much in terms of both attitudes, dress. It's again one of those like slice of life. Cut through Britain at that stage, and you get represented on screen what Prick Up Your Ears was.
Yes.
Yes. That's what an awful lot of what I got out of it as well. In terms of the mother relationship and the sister relationship and the agent relationship and all of that kind of stuff. Really.
But I think he grew to resent Orton towards the end, Chris, as well, because what happened was the resentment kicked in whenever, I think for me, it was very apparent when he didn't take him in the car with Paul McCartney that day. Mm-hmm. He was the wife that was left behind on the doorstep. That's right. He wasn't included in the meeting. And Orton had made a conscious decision not to take him, I think. And that's where the canker festered with Halliwell. I think after that point, he resented Orton. And it just got worse as Orton went to the awards without him as well. Did you notice? Right. He took his agent, not his husband.
Halliwell. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a bit like you say, actually, Steve, one of the other things that strikes me about it as well is the difference between people who have good ideas and the people that have long-lasting talent. Because obviously, Halliwell wanted credit for it because he thought he had good ideas and should be getting recognition for it. But as you say, that actually didn't translate into talent for him. Ideas are not talent, if that makes sense. But Halliwell couldn't work that out for himself. He couldn't see the difference between those two things. He just thought the two things were the same.
He did. And the thing was, Orton moved on without him and probably would have gone on to even bigger things like films as well. He never quite got that Beatles film screenplay done to the level he needed to get it out there. Because Epstein rejected it, rightly so, because it wasn't right for the Beatles. But the thing is, the boy hairdresser never saw the light of day either. That was the one they combined forces on because it just wasn't a good enough story. Yeah. So it was clear that, and he only wrote, I think, possibly 5 plays, I believe, he only wrote. The last one was posthumous, was performed after his death, What the Butler Saw. Yeah. And he won his Evening Standard Award for Loot, which was his most successful play. He wrote one called Funeral Games and Entertaining Mr. Sloane, and the radio play Ruffian on the Stair, which the film looks at. Which I think is still done on radio to this day. Yeah.
It's it's also a strange. Well, I'd say it's strange, but it's a great choice for this kind of thing as well, because it's a film that's impossible to spoil, because it spoils it the very first scene, so to speak, in terms of the outcome, etc.
It's historical fact all through the film. What I think is done very well by the writer of the screenplay is the comic elements in it. The library books, particularly funny sequences. The library books, I'm not going to say the word he says, by Monte, something by Monte. People died, and he sort of very expressively says it, and it's hilarious. I just was in raptures of hilarity when I saw that bit, because it's just so typically Alan Bennett. And there's a lot of Alan Bennett in it as well, which is why I like it so much, because I'm a massive Alan Bennett fan as a playwright.
Yeah.
So Stephen Frears picked the right man to write the screenplay, no doubt about it. And
it's
he
hilarious.
picked the right cast of people to be in it. It's absolutely jaw-droppingly funny in parts. It really is. I think what she said, you had a woman downstairs who you barely meet. Oh, I've just spilled more my vagina's just come off like a balloon. It's just so fun. That you just can't make lines like that up.
There's so many great ones.
They just collapse in laughter when she goes out the door, And the lines of Judy Walters, oh, but bloody blitz temper all my bloody bed sheets.
Oh, God.
Because he wants to look like, he's all dressed up as for one of his plays or something he's doing. Yeah. I don't think Orton would have become an actor in the end, though. I think he was destined to become a playwright. I don't think he would have been a successful actor. Yeah, I don't think he had the mentality for it, really. His irreverence would never have allowed him to do something serious on stage, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just some great lines.
He put his finger up to the whole of society and establishment. Everything he wrote was completely, there's a line, I think, there's a line in What the Butler Saw. It's not, I don't think it's even mentioned in the film, but it's a funny line. She's something, your legs are Y-shaped. They'll bury something. You spread your legs so wide, they'll bury you in a Y-shaped coffin, was one of the lines in the play What the Butler Saw. Yeah. It's just full of those really, really rude lines and moments. Some of them do get into the film, thankfully, as well. Yeah.
So some of Alfred Molina has just some. He must have read those lines and went, "Oh, this is so wonderful! I can't wait to say this on film and have it recorded." Some of it's shocking in some ways, but yeah.
Yeah. John Lahr's mother-in-law, did you notice? Wallace Shawn played John Lahr. Fantastic casting, Wallace Shawn in it. She's the woman who's the old woman in Fawlty Towers.
Oh, right, okay.
The same actress. Yeah.
Oh,
Joan Sanderson, I think her name is.
Right, okay.
Joan Sanderson. Yeah. That bit where she translates the shorthand in the book for her daughter. Just that one little scene where she's translates the shorthand into the rude words he wrote. That she's out of Fawlty Towers. She's the woman that complains about her room all the time to Basil Fawlty.
That's right, yes. Wonderful character in that as well. But it's a film full, actually, when I went to investigate it, a film full of interesting trivia, as you probably already know if you've delved into it in quite a long ways. So, like, the likes of Wallace Shawn, the reason Wallace Shawn is in it is because his agent was Vanessa Redgrave's character, and he volunteered. He says, "Can I be in it? I would like to play a part in it." And a lot of people say his casting was strange because obviously who he was and how famous he was and all the rest of it. But he literally inserted himself into the production rather than asked to do it.
It's great, and obviously the casting of Vanessa Redgrave as Peggy Ramsey, such a great part. And she just did such beautiful playing of it. And of course, she lifted the diaries on that day after the murder when she walks into the room backwards. But they don't surface for a long time till she finally thinks she can trust John Lahr and give him the diaries. Otherwise, the world would never have known what Joe Orton had written. And the thing was, he actually wanted Halliwell. This is the interesting thing, Chris. It's in the film. He wanted Halliwell to read the diaries. But he deliberately played a trick on him. Lots of the diary is in shorthand, so he would never have been able to know what the sexual content of the diary was, the juicy bits. He couldn't read shorthand. Yeah. So that was interesting as well.
So interesting. I'm dumb. I'm dumb, Steve, because I didn't even get that the title of the bloody film is a play on words by itself. Like that's just.
It is. I know.
I was like, what? Like, it seems so obvious when you realise it. I was like, oh, what the hell? But the other interesting thing that I found was obviously the Beatles stuff that was in it. Obviously, the fact that he was going to write the Beatles play, etc. But actually, how much of it actually influenced Joe's life in terms of, like, A Day in the Life was played at his funeral, for instance, and it is the coda to the film as well.
The other lovely sequence as well, again, very funny, where they're dividing up the ashes. And she says, "Oh, I think I put too much of Joe in. I put too much of Ken in. Oh, no, it's not a recipe, dear."
It's not a recipe.
Fantastic. And of course, that actually happened. That actually happened, yeah.
But I read that line in one of the Letterboxd reviews, and somebody had actually pointed out, I think it was a wonderful point, that actually I think there's a bit too much Ken. I think that is the story of their lives. You know, in a lot of ways, that just that line.
Absolutely.
Of putting it in,
yes,
there's a bit too much of Joe in this rather than, they've got the balance right. They didn't get the balance right in terms of their relationship to ultimately be successful as a partnership.
It was very imbalanced as a relationship, definitely. It really shouldn't have worked at all, yet somehow it did on some levels work. Yeah. And obviously, even when they were split up, the strange thing was, I was quite surprised. Would you think, when he's been to prison because of the library book issue, but he comes back out and he goes back to Knoll Road and back to Holywell.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Would you, in your wildest dreams, do that? No.
Well, I think that's who he was.
That would be your opportunity to get as far away as possible. Yes, it's who he was. He was quite generous as a person, Joe Orton. Yeah. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, Chris. I really am.
Fabulous choice. Fabulous choice.
Yeah. Thank you.
And one that
it's a very, very personal film for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, one that I thoroughly enjoyed delving into, especially not knowing anything, Steve, and it was like, I had no preconceptions.
The music, by the way, is by... No, good. That's what I hoped you would have, no preconceptions, yeah. It's good you know nothing about Joe Orton before you watched it, because then it became an education for you.
It did.
And the music is by Stanley Myers in that film, and it's a rather strange score, I think. It's you don't really know what it is, but it's somehow, it shouldn't really fit. But it does. How strange is that? Yeah. Because you'd think, why is the music like that? When I first heard the music, I thought, this is weird. But by the end of the film, I fully accepted the score.
But the film has like a weird feel to it, because it is about a very dark event. Like, phenomenally dark event. The darkest of all events, if you want to put it that way. And yet there's a gaiety and lightness about it, because it's celebrating two gay men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In their life, and it's like, okay.
Well, the trip to Morocco, it's like a Max Sennett silent comedy with the music, by the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea. And you're thinking, what? You clearly know what they're both getting up to, but there's nothing dark necessarily until Hollywood throws the typewriter over the balcony. But up to that point, it's quite light.
Yep, indeed.
But this, because of Bennett's comic writing all the way through it, is what makes it become not a dark and moody and miserable piece, which it could easily have been in the wrong hands.
Indeed. So that's our episode, Steve. Sad that it's come to an end.
For all
of the technical challenges that we've had, we've got to the end, and another really wonderful thing. If anybody doesn't know where to find you, Steve, or what you tend to do, now's your chance to go plug yourself.
Well, my channel is Let's Talk Criterion, and I preview new and forthcoming Criterion releases every week. Obviously, coming up, we have the month of November, a very busy month for Criterion, and I'm working on that particular section of Let's Talk Criterion now as we speak. But coming up in the immediate next, maybe it won't be before we see this, but certainly I've got the final release for October coming out, which is the Nagatu Yuzu film, Nani. So that's next on the roster for me.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, be coming out soon.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
So thank you very much, Chris, for inviting me on.
Yes, hope to have you on again sometime. I look forward to your film choice when that comes round. And the only thing left for me to say is what's coming up next. So next episode in the movie club, or kind of something borrowed section, is a film that I think would belong up there in the top 100 films of all time, of things that I've seen, but I don't believe it is yet. It is Funeral Parade of Roses.
Ah, right. Well, this will be a new one for me.
That's a BFI release to die for in a lot of ways. Brilliant film, and one that I can't wait to talk about. Thanks very much, Steve, and I'll catch everybody else in the next time. what I should say actually about Funeral Parade of Roses, if anybody has seen it and wants to get involved in the next episode, stick what you think about Funeral Parade of Roses down in the comments, or you can contact me through any of the other ways that are on the notes of this, and we'll include it in the next episode, because I think Funeral Parade of Roses is a film that will generate a lot of discussion, hopefully. That's unusual. I'll catch you next time on Something Blue. Take care. All the best.